Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Tomorrow on this program, one of two things is going to happen. Either I'm going to tell you my guest today is Matthew Broussard, or I'm going to tell you how Matthew Broussard canceled. And I have no reason to think he's going to cancel, but that's the plan for tomorrow because I'm taping him in about an hour. Matt Rife's book came out this week, kind of quietly. It took 2 days for anything on Google to show up. I had kind of forgotten. I don't know what to make of that, but now he seems to be doing some press. The book is called Your Mom's Gonna Love Me, and he talked about his change in looks. Did Matt Rife have plastic surgery? He claims it was simply puberty that led to an accelerated appearance change. He writes, puberty, after its sweet time for more than 20 years, finally decided to hit me square in the face. He claims he went from looking like a 13-year-old to an actual grownish man. He says his wider and more prominent features were all from a bizarrely stunted journey through puberty. People who have accused him of getting plastic surgery have a frightening lack of common sense and claims that his attractiveness has negatively affected his career. In the book, he says, as a comic, you're supposed to make the audience like you, right? Well, who the F likes attractive people? No one. Okay. He did an interview with Us Weekly. He says he has no regrets about anything. It's comedy. Sometimes you don't hit the mark. Plenty of people think I did. He was referring to the controversial joke in his November 23 special Natural Selection. He says, to me, the joke was just that, a joke. I wasn't trying to make some kind of profound statement about the state of society. I was trying to set the tone for the rest of the show via a personal spin on a classic joke. He wrote that practically overnight, he went from a TikTok sensation to basically canceled. Maybe it wasn't to your taste. That's fine. That happens. Not to me very often, but it happens. But that doesn't make me a supporter of domestic violence. I mean, I grew up with an abusive stepdad. Verbal abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse. I experienced it all. He says the only negative thing about the special is that people were upset. He says it's inevitable with almost any comedian. We're in the business of making people happy, but I gotta be me. The immense positivity I received at the very beginning of my career can't last forever. It taught me to respectfully not give a hoot. I know my intentions. I know where my heart lies. Matt turns 30 in September of 25 and said this was the perfect time to release a memoir and show fans the real him. Not only did I feel it necessary to explain more about my life and everything it took to get here, but it also feels like I've already lived a lot. So much of your life when you're in the public eye is open interpretation. It gave me a chance to tell my story on my terms. Matt Rife went on The View. Whoopi Goldberg said the book is wonderful and asked if he recorded the audiobook version. Rife said, you did the audiobook? A little lazy, but I respect it. Joy Behar said the comedians are under attack now. Rife pointed out that his close friend Nate Bargatze, I didn't know those two were friends. That's fascinating. He says Nate doesn't come under the same fire for his jokes, which are less raunchy. That's where you'd have to decide how much you want to be yourself and how much you want to pander to a community that might not even care about you in the first place. Whoopi Goldberg agreed, telling Rife on the panel that comics are always under fire. Inlander spoke to David Cross, and they asked him about the people he surrounds himself with. Is that important to his own creativity? Cross said, well, it's less about importance and just what I prefer. It's a great thing that I'm able to do. I mean, I know plenty of people who aren't creative, but creative people are more fun to hang out with. He talked about his podcast and said, for years, I didn't do one. I had no desire. I don't listen to podcasts myself. I have nothing against them. I just don't occupy my time that way. And then I started doing it. I loved it. It's really fun. It is really fun. And they're just conversations I would have. The way I approach it is what I tell people. It's just like, imagine we're strangers and we're sitting next to each other at a pub. That kind of conversation. Wow, it sounds like he went to Podcast Program Executive School 101. The amount of meetings I've been in. Oh, it's just a conversation. Cross, do you get annoyed by people who come up and recite Arrested Development lines? Cross said, oh, that's annoying. I've experienced pretty much everything, and by far, most people are cool and respectful, but yeah, there are plenty of folks that aren't. Good question here. What's it been like seeing a decent chunk of the comedic landscape shift from alt-comedy to alt-right comedy? I don't know if I agree with the premise. It's a good question, but it's not like alt-comedy went away. Joe Rogan opened a club, and Tony Hinchcliffe's podcast took off. That's it. Relax, everybody. Cross said, well, I mean, it's depressing because I've never really enjoyed or taken part in comedy that punches down and makes fun of the disenfranchised or vulnerable out there. That's never been my thing. So it's a bummer that it's so celebrated, financially rewarded. I mean, I don't make 1/100th of the amount of money that some of those guys are, but I'm going to do my stuff and always be me. I've always had a kind of stew of different stuff. I have very silly jokes. I have some that are kind of a little offensive. I have stuff that's anecdotal. I'd say easily a third of the set is just about anecdotal stuff. This thing happened to me or this thing I observed. And then obviously I dip into the current state of affairs, and there's always going to be a little religious stuff in there. For people who know my body of work, which there are literally decades worth of specials and albums and stuff, it's that. Mo Amer's show is getting a season 2. The show is called Mo. You may remember this one, the Netflix comedy about a Palestinian immigrant attempting to secure asylum in Houston. I either didn't know or forgot they renewed it. I like that show a lot. It was very good. The next batch of episodes, spoilers, we'll see Mo stranded across the border and desperate to get back to Houston before his family's asylum hearing. He's going to need all the hustle and charm he can muster. Little does he know that the journey home is just the start of his troubles, and there's a new guy in town ready to steal both his longtime love Maria and his falafel taco recipe. Mo, back on Netflix January 30th, Mo Amer says, I'm thankful to continue to tell a universal story of struggle that relates to so many refugees and millions of underrepresented humans trying to be seen around the globe. Sarah Silverman was politically active this fall, supporting the losing candidate. After the Electoral College numbers came in, Silverman said, I thought, oh God, what am I doing? Why am I on the road right now? I want to go home. But being on the road has made her feel better about the future. Sarah says it's been really, for whatever it's worth, a bit of a solve. I don't know what fresh hell we're in for, but to be together in a big group of people at night has been nice. Having that kind of feeling, connection on a local level has been oddly comforting. The optimist in me feels like community is going to be our savior. Being on tour feels like the beginnings of that for me. Bill Maher, who's totally not going to quit his HBO show. Stop, dude. Listen to yesterday's podcast. Maher is taping his next special tonight and tomorrow at the CIBC Theater in Chicago. Defector wrote an article that caught my attention. The headline, Crowd Work Isn't a Substitute for Comedy. Right there, I love the article because they've already nailed the premise. Defector writes, I hate to say it, but the biggest laugh in James Acaster's new special, Heckler's Welcome, comes from a heckle. I made it 7 minutes into that special. Or was it 8? I can't remember. I think I made it 7 into Jeselnik and 8 into Acaster. Either way, a total of 15 minutes between the two. Didn't enjoy either one. Defector writes, fast forward about 30 minutes into the latest special, and the punchline to another Acaster joke is a guy yelling to a bunch of bullies that their parents don't love them, to which one audience member pipes up, my parents are dead. Acaster is so impressed by the callback that he says, lovely to have a heckler in here who appreciates structure. To be fair to the audience, Heckler's Welcome isn't Acaster's best work. From the title and the setup, you'd expect there'd be quite a bit of intervention, and maybe that's what he was expecting, but there isn't a ton. Yeah, I can't even get out a sentence. I'm so perplexed by the special. Yeah, I was watching it, and I'm like, where are the hecklers? What's going on? Where's the comedy? And I bailed. Life is too short. I got too much to watch. If you can't get to it in the first 7-8 minutes, I got to move on. Defector writes, I wonder if Acaster thought he'd have more to work with by opening the floor to the hecklers, but he was a little thrown off by the relational change to his audience. I'm not sure. But I know he's usually a lot better than this, and they recommend that you check out his previous special, Cold Lasagna Hate Myself 1999, for an example. Matt Rife, that broy comedian who sells at arenas and looks like he was manufactured by a Chad machine. Hey, look, Matt Rife did not have plastic surgery. He's made that clear, okay, Defector? He became TikTok famous about 6 years ago off his crowd work. I mean, fine, he's quick. But the recurring Nazi punchlines also seem a little overly available to him, and explains that these clips allow you to promote your gig online without ruining it for anybody who actually pays to come. Skipping ahead, despite crowd work being leveraged in the past by older comics like Todd Barry, who in 2014 released the Crowd Work Tour, newer comedians say they're expected to produce content incessantly, and releasing audience interactions allows them to do that without burning material. Or SNL writer and comic Vanessa Jackson told the New York Times, the younger crowds, I think, enjoy authentic content more than something that's crafted. Wow. I'm just going to build a cabin up here on Old Man Mountain then and listen to old comedy. Colin Jost is out there promoting, Pop Culture Jeopardy. I keep wanting to say Celebrity Jeopardy. It's Pop Culture Jeopardy. I actually misspoke that in the Wednesday episode and had to use the AI to replace my own words. You'll hear someone say Pop Culture Jeopardy if you want to go back and hear that edit. Jost said, I found Pop Culture Jeopardy harder than regular Jeopardy. I was really impressed. You have to know different eras really well. You know, I go to trivia on Wednesday night, and part of it is, my crew and I were reasonably smart and reasonably educated. It depends what the trivia guys pick. Like some nights they hand in, I just call them Ariana Grande questions. And I'm like, we have no chance tonight because whatever, they're into like 2010s music. And I'm like, we don't know any of this. And then other weeks they ask a lot of 80s questions and we crush and we win a t-shirt. Joe said, I was fascinated when no one would know something from the 90s or no one would know something from the early 2000s. Maybe that's just generational because there were a lot of younger groups competing. Pop culture is so different for everyone and what sticks with them, and especially modern things can get very divided because almost in an algorithmic way, your experience with culture is so fragmented. Joe says, I promise in no way am I trying to steal Ken Jennings' job. He's very good at his job. I also have a job. He and I texted during the Pop Culture Jeopardy tapings, actually. He was supportive. What he was saying is true. There's almost no one that knows what it's like to host the game. You know, all those crazy specific things you have to do in every game and keep track of in addition to just what seems like normal hosting stuff. The gameplay of it is so specific and fast and precise that it's just an experience that almost no one gets to have. It's like talking to someone who used to host Weekend Update. It has its own vocabulary and its own experience that's very specific. Jimmy Fallon, he used to host Weekend Update. Well, he has released a deluxe edition of his holiday seasoning Christmas album. He added 9 tracks. Now, Jimmy, dude, what if I bought this thing 3 weeks ago? Say I spent $15 and now you're like, here's 9 more tracks? I mean, I have Apple Plus, so I don't care. It's all unlimited streaming for me, except for that pesky monthly payment. But, if I had actually bought a CD or a cassette or an 8-track and now you drop 9 more songs, come on, that's not cool. Who did this? The new tracks are called Christmas Alone, The Elves Are Unionizing, Broadway Do You Remember, Today at Christmas Time, Remember Christmas with Lang Lang, Elvis on the Shelvis, Little Drummer Boy, Silent Night, and Holiday with the Jonas Brothers and LL Cool J. And that's your comedy news for today. All right, tomorrow, Matthew Broussard or not. So come back and find out what happens. Now, I have no reason to think that he's going to cancel. Sometimes with these tapings, the comedians forget, and it's all good. I understand. It's a dude in the basement recording podcasts, and they forget. I feel like I'm throwing Broussard under the bus. He's done nothing wrong. I don't know. It's 1:02 p.m., and I'm recording with him at 3:30. Anyway, come back tomorrow, and we'll find out what happened. See you then.